New detail tonight in the murder of a former local radio personality. Tasheka Young was a mother of two, and tonight we've learned from an arrest report that her mother found her body in her home with her two young children.
Well, Heather, they say that she was found dead in her apartment here behind me. They tell me that she loved unconditionally, and they also say she was ambitious. They also tell me they were trying to help her get away from Armstrong for years.
On a warm July afternoon in 2022, Jacksonville, Florida, buzzed with its usual vibrancy. But within a quiet apartment at Mission Point, a tragedy was brewing that would shatter countless lives. Tasheka Renette Young, affectionately known as Tasheka to her radio audience, was a beacon of light in her community. A rising star in broadcasting, a loving mother, and a symbol of resilience, her life held immense promise. Yet, her story, like so many others, was marked by a harrowing turn of events. This is the story of Tasheka Young, a woman whose dreams were as big as her heart, but whose life was tragically cut short by the man she once trusted with it. Born on June 15, 1988 in Jacksonville, Florida, Tasheka was the youngest of three children. Her mother, Tanya, worked as a nurse, and her father, Ronald, was a truck driver. The young family wasn't wealthy, but their home was rich with love, laughter, and unwavering support. From an early age, Tasheka showed delightful intelligence. She was the kind of child who lit up every room she walked into, her infectious energy drawing people to her. She shared a special bond with her siblings, Ronald Jr. and Tasha, who often described her as the glue that held them together. Tasheka's ambition became apparent as she grew older. She excelled in academics, graduating from Robert E. Lee High School in 2007. She was not just a good student, she was a leader, active in the National Honor Society, student government, and the cheerleading squad. Her dreams stretched far beyond the walls of her school. She pursued higher education, earning her associate degree in communications from Florida State College in Jacksonville, before completing her bachelor's and master's degrees at Bethune-Cookman University. Armed with a passion for storytelling and a love for music, Tasheka found her calling in broadcasting. In 2012, she joined Power 106.1, a Jacksonville-based hip-hop radio station. Starting as an intern, she worked her way up to co-hosting the morning show. On air, she was Tasheka, the bubbly, relatable DJ who felt more like a friend than a voice on the radio.
With that station, I'm in the studio with Faith Evans and Lil Cease. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Beyond her professional life, Tasheka was deeply rooted in her community. She organized charity drives, mentored young women, and used her platform to advocate for justice and equality. To those who knew her, Tasheka wasn't just a personality. She was a force for good. In 2012, Tasheka met Bursey Jerome Armstrong Jr., a man who seemed charming and supportive at first. They quickly began dating, and within a year, their relationship grew serious. Tasheka saw in Bursey what she thought was a partner to build a life with. They moved in together and eventually had two children. To outsiders, they appeared to be a happy family. But behind closed doors, the relationship was fraught with tension. Bursey had a controlling side that grew more pronounced over time. He was possessive, often accusing Tasheka of infidelity without reason. Friends and family noticed bruises and changes in her demeanor, but Tasheka, like many victims of domestic violence, kept much of her pain private. She confided in close friends about Bursey's temper, his jealousy, and the threats he made when she tried to leave.
We kept telling her to leave. We knew it was coming, but we didn't. It just when it came, it just really hurt.
Still, she hoped he would change. She wanted her children to have their father, and she clung to the possibility that the man she loved could overcome his demons. By mid-2022, Tasheka had reached a breaking point. She began making plans to leave Bursey for good, confiding in her mother about her intentions. "I need to get out," she told Tanya. "I can't do this anymore." On the night of July 20th, 2022, Tasheka called her mother one last time. She sounded determined but anxious, telling Tanya she would be moving out of the apartment she shared with Bercy. It was the kind of conversation that hinted at both hope and fear. A woman ready to reclaim her life but wary of the consequences. 3 days later, Tanya grew worried when she couldn't reach her daughter. Tasheka was always in touch, especially with her children in the picture. So, on July 23rd, Tanya decided to visit her daughter's apartment.
According to this arrest warrant, Young's mother went to her home after she wasn't able to get in touch with her. Inside, the report says her mother found her lying on the bedroom floor, bloody and unresponsive. The mother told police her daughter and Armstrong had a violent relationship. She told officers Young had said Armstrong had held a gun to her head 2 weeks earlier.
In the early hours of July 23rd, 2022, when a neighbor living below Tasheka Young's apartment on Biscayne Bay Boulevard heard something unusual. The sound of stomping, heavy, rushed footsteps echoed from above. Curious but concerned, the neighbor paused to listen more closely. Then she heard Tasheka's voice, shaky and pleading, "Please don't, I love you." What followed next was shocking, a loud bang like a gunshot. Then, silence. A silence so heavy it was only broken by the faint cries of children. The neighbor, unsure of what to do but deeply unsettled, picked up her phone and called 911. When officers arrived, they knocked on Tasheka's door, but found no answer. Without clear signs of danger or distress, they decided they didn't have enough cause to force their way inside. They left, never realizing the horror hidden behind that door. The next day, Tasheka's mother, Tanya, became worried. She hadn't heard from her daughter in over 24 hours, and something didn't feel right. Tasheka always stayed in touch, especially with her being pregnant and looking after her 2 children. Tanya's calls went unanswered, and as the hours ticked by, her concern grew into panic. Unable to wait any longer, Tanya drove to Tasheka's apartment. When she arrived, she noticed the door wasn't locked. A pit formed in her stomach as she pushed it open. Inside, the apartment was eerily quiet. Tanya called out, "Tasheka?" But there was no answer. As she walked further in, she entered the bedroom and froze. There, on the floor, was her daughter, lying in a pool of blood. She had been shot twice. Her heart pounding, Tanya called 911. She could hardly speak as she explained what she had found. The pain of seeing her daughter like that was too much to bear. And then she discovered something else. Tasheka's 2 young children, trembling and terrified, hiding in a corner of the room. They had been there the whole time, too scared to move. When Tanya asked what had happened, one of the children, her grandson, whispered words that would haunt her forever. "Daddy hurt Mommy." The police quickly identified Bercy Armstrong Jr., Tasheka's boyfriend and the father of her 2 children, as their prime suspect. The couple had been in a rocky, on-again, off-again relationship for years. But this wasn't just any relationship. It was toxic, filled with arguments, control, and moments of fear. At the time of her death, Tasheka was pregnant with their 3rd child. As detectives processed the crime scene, another twist unfolded. Bercy showed up at the apartment. His arrival shocked everyone, but it gave the officers a chance to detain him for questioning. Not long after, investigators obtained a warrant to search the home of Bercy's parents, where he had been staying. What they found was as disturbing as it was incriminating. In the backyard, under the steps, they discovered a freshly dug hole. Inside it lay a firearm, carefully hidden. Nearby, they found bloody clothing. Forensic testing confirmed the devastating truth. The gun was the murder weapon, and the blood on the clothes belonged to Tasheka. Officers learned that Bercy had a history of violence. He had been arrested before for domestic battery and aggravated assault, though he often managed to avoid serious punishment. Friends of Tasheka came forward to describe his controlling and abusive behavior, painting a picture of a man who had long been a threat to her safety.
We kept telling her to leave. We knew it was coming, but we didn't, it just when it came, it just really hurt. only because it's like so many of us that knew what was going on tried to save her.
When you're deep in love and you are blinded by love, you can't see those things. So you kind of push them away and underneath the cover that she loved them, that there's nothing in this world that she wouldn't do for them. Tell somebody, ask for help. It's not worth losing your life.
For days, the authorities tracked Bursey. They followed leads across state lines until finally locating him in a motel room in Savannah, Georgia. When officers knocked on his door, Bursey refused to surrender. He barricaded himself inside, claiming he was armed and threatening to harm himself. The standoff lasted for hours. Police negotiators pleaded with him to come out peacefully, reminding him of his children and the lives he had already shattered. Eventually, with no way out, Bursey gave up. He was arrested and brought back to Florida to face justice. The case moved swiftly to trial. The evidence against Bursey was undeniable. The gun, the clothing, the heartbreaking testimony of Tasheka's young children, all pointed to one conclusion.
A judge already found probable cause and set your bond at none. Appoint the public defender's office and pass the case to August the 16th for arraignment. Thank you.
State Attorney Melissa Nelson announced that a Duval County jury had found Bursey Armstrong Jr. guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder, one for Tasheka and one for her unborn child. The judge, Honorable Tatiana Salvador, did not hold back. Bursey faced a maximum sentence of life in prison, with a mandatory minimum of 25 years for discharging a firearm that caused death. His sentencing date was set, but for Tasheka's family, the verdict was bittersweet.
In the circuit of the 4th Judicial Circuit, in for Duval County, Florida, case number 16-2022, CF 7251-8XXXMA, Division CRE. State of Florida versus Bursey Jerome Armstrong Jr., verdict count 1, with the jury found the defendant guilty of murder in the 2nd degree as charged in the information. We find the defendant discharged a firearm causing death or great bodily harm during the commission of the offense. Verdict as to count 2, with the jury found the defendant guilty of murder in the 2nd degree as charged in the information. We found the defendant discharged a firearm causing death or great bodily harm during the commission of the offense. Say so we all, done Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida, signed by 4-person on July 17, 2024.
Justice may have been served, but it could never bring back Tasheka or erase the trauma endured by her children. Her mother, Tanya, still wakes up some nights hearing echoes of her daughter's voice. The community that once loved Tasheka mourns the loss of a bright, joyful presence on the airwaves.
It's taken a long time for this to occur, but we're glad that it did occur, and we're glad that the verdict did come out the way it did.
We can move on now, y'all. Justice was served.
I felt good because Tasheka was standing there with me and saying, Mama, you got to be strong and say what you got to say, and that's what I did.
Loving, fun, just full of life, full of energy. You know, she just had a beautiful personality, a beautiful spirit, and we see that now in her kids today.